are live in the Wellcare Summit page with movement expert, integration expert, consciousness expert, Wellcare expert, Egwin Ertl from Austria. Egwin, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, Andres, how are you doing? Welcome. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Great. You're in Austria, right?
I'm in Austria right now. Yeah, like you don't really see any snow outside the window anymore because the last 2 days we had a couple of degrees on the plus side again. But like 2 weeks ago, we were minus 17 degrees Celsius. It was awesome, like a real winter again for a change. But I like the summer as well. But if it's winter, then it has to be real winter. Like, yeah.
All right. Well, it's 4 a.m. here in Hawaii, 5 o'clock now. And so it's a little dark still here. And it's not as cold, man.
Yeah, I know. I love Hawaii.
All
Over
right.
here, we have 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Edwin, so today, let's talk about, what are three things that people can do to improve their health right now?
Yeah, that's a very good and very interesting topic. And like, since I moved through so many different health modalities and things, one of the things for me that is the most crucial at the moment is really to get back into your own strength, into your own empowerment, into your own ability to own your own possibilities and to really become conscious about yourself, your body, your mind, your emotions, you're just your whole being again. And so a lot of the things that I do, they actually have to do with how does the body work? How is the mind, how is consciousness tied into our body functions, into health, into well-being, into reaching goals, and so on. So the very first step that for me personally is the most important right now in working with people is literally to facilitate experiences that lead to an understanding of how the body, how the mind, how emotions actually work. Because this is what I see is missing out there the most. A couple of years ago, like roughly 15 years ago, I was still mainly in therapy. And eventually I switched from therapy to teaching primarily. And the reason for that was that I just didn't want to see like the same faces of people over and over again, constantly coming with the same problems over and over again, not because I was doing a bad job, but because they just didn't really want to change their lives. And I figured that's okay, but there are enough therapists out there who can actually deliver just a quick fix to those people. But personally, I was always more interested in people who also were interested in re-engaging with their own ability and trying to literally find their way back to more freedom and more independence in being healthy and in staying healthy. And actually, that's the foundation of what I think has to change in our whole healthcare and welfare system all around the globe at the moment. A lot more self-acceptance, a lot more self-empowerment has to come back into those areas. Now, the thing is, the more you want to be empowered, the more you also need to know about yourself. And we're not talking about a lot of fancy stuff. You don't like need to know all your blood works by heart and need to know what all those numbers and all those letters actually mean when you read a blood work letter or something like that. So what I wanted to say is you don't have to study medicine in order to know enough about your body to be actually able to do something for your health. And I think this is the main thing that I am trying to give back to people, this self-empowerment and the understanding that knowledge about yourself, about how the body works, is absolutely essential and absolutely crucial. And now knowledge, when I'm talking about it like that right now, I never mean by that just reading a book about it. For me, knowledge always has to be applicable. It always has to be linked and connected with experience, because otherwise it's literally a form of belief. It might be a form of sort of proven belief when you say you read a study, a medical study or something like that. But every time it's really about gaining freedom. It's not just about believing in something you read. It's about believing, making an experience, and then adapting whatever you heard, whatever you learned in such a way that it fits you personally and individually. Because life is just such a complex thing, and there are no systems currently out there that are capable of literally embracing the individuality of each and every person on this planet in one big, huge theory or system. And this is why I think making experiences and learning some of the most fundamental and very simple tools, that's crucial and that's essential. And now the question is, the big question obviously is, what tools and how can I learn that? Well, each and every one of us, we all learn how to put on a t-shirt, or how to write, or how to use a fork or a toothbrush. And this is something that I miss in the modern world when it comes to health and well-care, that most people are never taught how to relax again. Most people are never taught how to snap out of an emotional state. Most people are not taught on how to refocus and recenter their awareness in themselves, which is absolutely crucial in order to be able to work from a place of your own passion, of your own empowerment, and of your own intention, rather than literally surfing opinions and surfing the ideas that surround you, with more and more losing yourself in the process. And so the very first things, I always try to break it down to basic principles. And when I talk about basic principles, the first thing everyone can do is check in and do something that connects you with your physical body, literally with your physical body. Try to dial up your awareness and your perception of yourself and the interaction of yourself with your surroundings. You don't need any tools for that. You don't need any specific advice for that, other than the most simplest way to connect with yourself is literally to touch yourself. Like literally use your hand and brush down your arm and be aware and be conscious of that. Be aware and conscious of what literally sensations, but also feelings that actually creates. We're talking that much basic.
So Egwin, so like for me, when I grew up in Colombia and it's like crazy down there, and the first time I heard meditation, I was like, oh man, that's like super spiritual, like whatever. And then I heard that the president of Colombia did meditation. And I was like, oh wow, so maybe it's there. And he was like a hardcore dude. And he says like, oh yeah, I don't start my day without meditation. And so how do you tell my old self, like somebody who hasn't really crossed that, the seeing the tools and the benefits, or Egwin, explain to me, like, how do I like connect with myself or my body? Like, something that you do, or something that practical, or in your system, what do you think that people can do?
Yeah, I think most important thing here is that many of those terms, there is a lot of bias around them. And also a term like meditation, which in literal translation means to think about something. Meditation can be many, many, many different things. And the most simple thing that also falls in the category of meditation is literally to take a little bit of time where you do something in conscious interaction with yourself. So not saying, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'm going to take a shower right now. This is doing something for yourself, but still it is, you go to the shower because at some point you learned when you let water rain over your body, then afterwards you don't stink that much anymore. So okay, so that's still, you're doing something for yourself in a way. But what I want, or what I tell people to do, is literally this immediate physical interaction with themselves. And the most basic meditation that I teach is body-oriented meditation. Now, this literally comes down, and this is explainable by neurological aspects, actually. It doesn't matter to me if I have a very spiritual person in front of me, or if I have a university professor from the Technical University in Graz, for example, where I did health programs for this company. It doesn't matter, because one can explain it in a very simple way. Now, let me do that really quick. One of the main problems that most people in our Western world nowadays have is that they literally physically lose the ability of connecting and feeling themselves, connecting with themselves and feeling themselves. What does this mean? There is this concept of sensomotoric paralysis out there. Now, normally, when you have a muscle and you stretch this muscle really fast, then there is a protection reflex in that muscle that contracts the muscle in order to prevent it from being torn apart. Now, normally each muscle group in our body has a specific trigger speed before this protection reflex actually takes action. The problem nowadays is sensory paralysis. In this case means that many people, if you bring them in a regular stretching position, really slowly, nothing fast, just you bring them in a physical position where the muscle is gently being stretched, that even at this very slow speed, the muscle immediately contracts, because neurologically, this person lost the ability to actively engage with the muscle and tell it relax or tense up. So sensomotoric paralysis literally means that the body, due to not using it or using it the wrong way, actually starts to protect itself and switches aspects that you can normally, in a healthy person, that you can normally control on a conscious level with your conscious mind, that those aspects are suddenly neurologically rewired to being reflexes. And reflexes, they don't even work, as you know, they don't even work through the brain anymore. We're literally talking about neurological connections that normally run all the way up into my brain and from my brain back out into the muscle, being rewired in such a way that it's literally, as soon as that muscle is stretched to a specific length, automatically the reflexes kick in and tense it up.
So let me make sure I understand it. So what you're saying is that I'm stretching the muscle. And then there is a reflex. But through more stretching, I can actually rewire the threshold of that reflex.
There are, meanwhile, before, like a couple of years ago, you just used passive stretching and real using your hand to, for example, place it on the muscle that you're stretching to literally reconnect your sensation, your conscious awareness and sensation with that muscle to eventually be able to control it consciously again. Meanwhile, there are even specific stretching techniques out there that allow you to rewire the neurological makeup between your brain, your conscious mind, and the muscle a lot faster. And that's, for example, one of those extremely widespread, literally, diseases that we have out there at the moment. And
that the trigger or the reflex is too soon.
Exactly.
So
the reflexes are obviously healthy,
right?
But when, for example, when I try to stretch my pectoral muscle here, and I place my hand somewhere on a wall or something like that, and I just gently try to really stretch this muscle. Now, when I go into this movement in such a slow pace, normally the muscle shouldn't jump in protection mode because it is a slow and controlled movement. On the contrary, I should be able, with my mind, to be able to give the command to the muscle, please relax even a little bit more now. And sensomotoric paralysis means that the mind lost the ability to tell the muscle to relax. And instead, even when moving into a stretch this slowly, the muscle just jumps to protection mode.
That's cool.
That's what this means.
That's amazing. You know, the one thing that I've been kind of doing bodybuilding in the past like 3 months, you know, and I've been realizing that it has so much to do, like, you know, if I can change my body that quickly in 2 months, can I do the same thing with my bank account? Can I do the same thing with my house? Can I do the same thing with my career? Change it like that. And this is such a cool lesson because so many in our lives, when we're about to grow, we retract. When we're about to grow, there is a reflex. Oh no, you know, I'm scared. I'm going out of my tribe. I'm going rogue, you know, and just to be able to calmly say, you know, breakthrough is about to happen. The threshold then goes up. The next time that pain comes through, you can handle it. It's a next level and the next level. And so that is such a great lesson that trickles down into our lives, huh?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, that is what I always mean by the connection of consciousness and our body. Like, for me, consciousness is something that encompasses our body, our mind, our emotions, all our sensory perceptions, and some more things. So when I talk about consciousness, I don't just talk about the mind, but that's the thing. Like, all of the tools that we have, our fingers, our body, our emotions, our thoughts, I perceive all of them as tools of expression and interaction. And they all are interlinked with each other. And so back to your question, when we're talking about meditation, there are techniques that focus solely on regaining conscious control, conscious ability of dealing with your physical body again. Now, when you are able to retake physical control of your body, this also means that it changes your mental setup and it changes your emotional setup, because every single thought manifests in the body. Every single emotion manifests in the body, no matter if it's from an internal or from an external trigger. So it all leads into this wonderful apparatus that we have here. Now, when you learn on just one of those areas to actually retake control, you're in the good, because that second it starts to translate to all other areas of your life. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah. One thing that you make me think of is when I started doing breath holding. And so breath holding, I started doing it, and I started doing it through the Navy SEALs, you know, because the Navy SEALs, there's this process. And so I was learning how to do this square breathing thing. And so, and I just took it a little step farther. And so I would hold my breath, and then, you know, you feel your diaphragm go, you know, contract. But when you just control, you still don't breathe, even though your body wants to. You hold it. And then that's amazing, because when I was in a code in the hospital, and there is, 10 people running into the room, people, do we need to shock this patient? Do we need to do this? That helped me so much to be able to just control my breathing, and be relaxed so I could lead the team, and you're so right, man. Once you can see that, okay, my body is doing this, but I can actually just like, play with it and switch it and control it to a certain degree, influence it. I can influence it in certain ways, so that's really good, because it gives you freedom of the fight or flight.
Exactly.
It puts you, it separates you from the fight or flight. It's happening, but you just kind of you can influence it a little bit. So that's great, man.
Yeah. That's one of the most central aspects, that when I start to work with people in consciousness development, that is exactly what I mean by it. I literally mean being able to take control back, because the body always tries to minimize energy output. Always. And this sentence, use it or lose it, it can't be more true. And right now, our minds are extremely flexible. Our emotions partially. Emotions already are a little bit like distorted with different types of trauma that each and every one of us has, depending on how old or he or she is, more or less, and so on, or where he or she comes from. But our minds are so extremely flexible, and they are trained to a degree they've never been trained before, with different patterns from computers and stuff like that. But our body actually is left behind completely. So the body takes back control by pushing some aspects that would normally be consciously available to the subconscious in order just to maintain this basic function. But whenever you want peak performance, no matter where and for what in your life, you don't just want to be alive somehow. You don't want to be like just a millimeter above flatline. You really want to have all the tools to your disposal to make the best out of a situation, which is another aspect, like to reconnect with yourself in such a level, no matter how you do it, no matter if it's via meditation or if it's through stretching or training. The really interesting thing here is they all lead back to one specific thing, which is being in the present moment. Because all of those aspects, they can be experienced the most in the very current present moment, which is also where, again, your heart, which also resembles not just conceptually, but also physically, also your passion. That's the interesting thing. Like in the present moment, your heart has the ability to actually help you in controlling your body. Like this is research that, for example, the Heart Math Institute did and so on. So what they found out is that literally by tuning into this heart rate variability of yours and balancing that out, that suddenly all the different organ systems in your whole body, they actually start to be in tune with each other. And that even goes as far as defining your ability to be empathic with others, to be able to interact with others from a space where you feel safe. And so this is the next stage of that. So all of those areas are connected, our mind, our body, and it doesn't really matter. It all brings us back into the moment. It brings us back to being more consciously alive in the present moment, which also subjectively prolongs our perception of time. Like when you think back as a child, a day sometimes felt like a year. Waiting at a bus stop as a child for, say, half an hour probably feels like it feels for an adult to wait for a day. And that's actually one of the reasons why. Because as an adult, you block out so much of your present moment. You deprive yourself of so much present and currently active experience that your mind literally tries to sort of pull the very few aspects that you do still perceive, it pulls them together. It almost compresses time. Obviously, time is always like more or less physically speaking, more or less the same length. Like this kid can have a watch and this adult can have a watch, and both watches say, we waited half an hour for the bus, but for the kid, it feels like a day. Yeah. And one of the reasons is that this kid suddenly realizes, oh yeah, look, the leaves on that tree. Oh, a warm breeze from the right side. Oh, my left hip is more open than my right. And those experiences aren't even all conscious, but they are still consciously available. And so the implications of that are huge.
That's so cool, man. I remember I was in I almost, after I got out of a class, I ran into like many years ago, I ran into a truck. And from the back, I rear-ended someone. And then I went back and the next day, you know, the same class, and I told this lady, she actually used, she was a therapist actually. She was doing this class with us, and she was telling me like, and she actually uses hypnosis to help people overcome, you know, addictions or smoking, or we were in this class together. And she was telling me, like, she said, look into mindfulness. And I was like, what? And then I realized, like, okay. And then I started looking into mindfulness and like just feeling like, okay, where's my feet right now? You know, where is my other foot? What am I feeling in the sole of my foot? What am I feeling in my left shoulder? You know, all these things, man, you realize, and it's like, wow, we're tuning out, you know, so much of our experience. So, you know, I'm almost hearing like, the first step is like do something that connects you with your body.
Exactly. And then there are a lot of different layers to it. Like the first thing literally would be something as simple as really touch a joint again, move this arm and just feel how it feels. Yeah, literally something extremely simple. The next stage of this reconnection can be something that allows you to actually create a much more efficient movement style already. Like, I'm not talking about yoga versus something or something like that. No, I'm really talking about physiologically. Now, what I mean by that, again, it's the connection between the mind and our body. Our minds and our whole psyche nowadays is often very stressed out.
Right.
And so the second important point that I want to make right now is really take time to consciously relax. And when I say relax, I don't mean collapse, and I don't mean it in the sense of, for example, autogenic training or something like that, or Feldenkrais. But what I mean by that is you can use and you can integrate release aspects in your movement consciously that, again, work from both sides. First of all, because you're doing it consciously, you're telling with your mind, you're giving a release comment rather than I have to work consciously and I always have to work and have to work and have to work. But there is also, let me give an example with my shoulder. Like when I stretch out my arm here, and I supinate my arm. So my palm faces upwards. Now this is obviously an external rotation in my shoulder joint. What I can do from this position, I'm just trying to figure out a position where you can still see me. What I can do in this position, obviously, I can internally rotate my arm, and then I can externally rotate again. And I can internally rotate, and I can externally rotate without any break in between and without any form of release in the muscles that I can consciously perceive. I just say externally rotate, and then the next thought is again an action. It's internally rotate. Instead of externally rotate, release, internally rotate, release, externally rotate. So there is this big difference of the release in between.
That's so cool.
Whenever we do something in one direction, we just used energy. And then there is a point where we can let go and where we can let this energy work for us.
Yeah. Yeah. One time, you make me think of one time we were actually putting a patient in life support when I was actually working in London in the NHS. And we were, it's an intense moment. Somebody's about to die, and you're trying to put them. And this was a very difficult life intubation, And so, kind of tense. And I was kind of at the beginning of my career. And then I remember she was an intensive care unit doctor for many years. And she said, just release your shoulders. And I just did that. And it was I was doing the same activity of this intense activity, but I was in a relaxed state, and the same thing with, if you train with very experienced surgeons and whatever, drop your shoulders, release movement, release movement, release. And it helps with your energy consumption a lot. You don't get tired as much. You can hold so much more.
Exactly. And it also, again, it's a form of reconnecting with your body, because the only thing that really tight and pulled up shoulders mean is that the center of awareness in your body is up here. And when the center of awareness is limiting itself to a specific body part, then you also lose the capacity that is stored in the rest of your body. Not just for perception, but for everything. Every thought expresses in the body, every emotion expresses in the body. And that's the thing. The second you tense up and you get completely caught up with your awareness just in one area because you're working so hard with your hands or something like that, that very second, everything that's going on in your mind at that moment also tries to express itself just in this small area of the body. So you're literally physically using less of your potential for compensation and for expression as well, which also not just limits your energy levels, but it also limits your abilities to find new solutions, new creative solutions in that very moment.
That's awesome, man. Because it's so cool. Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve the problem from the same state of mind, right? And so all these things that you're saying now are converging. The first thing so it's almost like the first step is, do something that connects with your body from what I'm getting from you. And then the second step from what I'm getting from you personally, what I'm getting is that the second step is to acknowledge the fact that you have the availability to actually disassociate from that option available. And so all these things come to mind. The first one is the Navy SEAL square breathing, that when you hold your breath and your body wants to go, that you can actually disassociate your mind. While you're talking about the release, like when I was doing the intubation, just release, so you can realize that you're not the tension, you have the ability to tense or to release. So you have that option to you. And the third thing that makes me think of this is me and Mary, we actually spent a month in Bali doing neuro-linguistic programming. And one of the biggest tools that they use in neurolinguistics is that if you're going, let's say I have a big trauma from childhood, and let's say that I was associated in it. So I'm reliving it, right? And I'm seeing everything. One little simple tool is to realize that you're like, make it as if you actually are watching that on TV.
Yeah.
Just that disassociation from it gives you so much release, because you realize you're not living it again. You're just watching it. And so it's almost like that ability to realize is like that second step, right?
Exactly. It's like the first stage is literally to work on the perceptual capacity again, to be able to perceive, to be able to become conscious of a process, to become conscious of an emotion, a thought, a pattern that you relive, a pattern that you currently use out of stress or whatever. So that's being aware of that is part one. The second part, just to frame what you just said in different words again, so that the viewer also has more different angles from which one can take a look at that. Right. That is taking conscious control of the center of awareness and perception. That's the second big part. Because if your perception is completely, say, at your boss, who is currently like pushing you to finish something or something like that, and the first thing is all your attention and your awareness goes into what he just says. And if he says it in a way that you're not comfortable with emotionally, most of your ability to react to it in a healthy way is reduced to a minimum. That very second, you lose your center in listening to him. So it's always to control your perceptual awareness means you realize that in a moment when someone says something that triggers something in you, whether it's stress or an old trauma or something like that, that whether or not your awareness actually jumps on that, and you don't perceive your body anymore, you don't perceive your breathing anymore, you just react completely with the second stage of what you just said, literally starting to identify with the problem. Yeah. The second you identify with that problem, then you are lost in it, and then it's difficult to get back out of it. So taking back control of the center of your awareness is the second important stage, because it allows you to also be centered in yourself while you're still listening to someone else, but you keep your ability to adapt, and you are still centered in your full capacity to react to this situation rather than identifying with it.
Yes, you know, you make me think of Byron Katie. She tells the story, if for those viewers who are familiar with it, she's an author, she's an incredible therapist and helps people overcome a lot of issues. And she was talking about, she was homeless, right? Mm-hmm. And she says this is the darkest moment of her life, because she was having so much self-pity and she was feeling so low that she didn't even feel, she was at a shelter that day and she didn't even feel worthy enough to sleep in the bed in the shelter. So she slept in the floor. And she noticed a cockroach running through her. And she got so scared. And then she realized, like, wow, like me believing the thought that I'm scared is what is making me like afraid of this cockroach right now, believing that thought. When you believe that thought that you're scared, when you believe the thought that you can't do it, and it was just like what you're saying. It makes me think of that you realize that, okay, that's what's going on, but I don't have to, grab onto it and be that. I'm not that, it's just a thought.
Yeah. And it's the reaction to some sort of outside influence. The question is always, do you identify with that outside influence, or do you keep, like you mentioned it before, do you keep this ability to being detached from it and realizing that you are one part of what's going on between those two polarities, between you and the cockroach, you and the boss, or whatever. So the second you're capable of doing that, that very second, again, you're much more free. And now to dial it back once again to that example, since we told our viewers that we're talking about consciousness, emotions, mind, and the body. Now, I throw in another stone in all of this. When we take this example with externally rotating and internally rotating the arm, now what does the release structurally mean in the body? And this is important. This might be important for many fitness instructors out there even, or yoga instructors and so on. Now, the fun thing is when I just think externally rotate and without release internally rotate, and I do this movement, say 10 times, my humerus head at some point will eventually get a little bit out of alignment in my glenoid, so in my shoulder socket, because with most people, the muscles are not coordinated perfectly. Like 95% of the people probably, the muscles are not coordinated perfectly. So eventually, when you repeat a movement under tension over and over again, always focusing on tension, you get out of alignment. Psychologically, this is representative of coming under tension from an external influence, or identifying with problems or identifying with emotions over and over again, and you get pulled out of alignment with yourself. Now, in the body, we fix it by putting in this relaxation aspect. Relaxation aspect in terms of I just externally rotate it, now I release, and then I internally rotate. And what happens in that release, every time we release, the passive structures of my body, depending on the joint, obviously, they recenter the two parts of the joint and realign the joint. So when you move with a conscious change of tension and release, I consciously don't say tension and relaxation, because relaxation is often complete relax and let out all the energy. Because if I relax my arm completely, it falls down. It's about releasing the tension in order to allow the movement to start in the new direction. And in that release, you recenter and you physically realign your bone structure.
That's
when
cool,
you do
man.
that and you're conscious about that, you can use such a simple exercise to even realign your mind and your emotions. And those are basic principles that I'm talking about. Those are the things that everyone should actually learn in school. Because when you know your body, when you know movement, when you know your body-mind correlation on such a level, you have more tools than most professionals out there are currently using with their clients.
Because you know, I mean, the Massachusetts study about heart attacks, right? 30% survival for people with their first heart attack if that person loves their job, right? So, you know, this realignment, you know, people will, as we get busier, Egwin, you're an incredibly busy individual with all your projects all over the world. And people will pull us and steal our time, trying to piss us off or trying to pull us out of our mission. And so, or just situations, or just the way that, you know, that we have to grow. And so just being able to daily, you know, what is it that I'm here to do? What is my alignment? What, you know, and so like, oh, you know, I'm wasting like 30% of my day doing this one thing that it has nothing to do with my alignment. And so it's like doing that through the movement every day, and like every movement is like that, you know, that is so powerful. Because, you know, if I'm like this every day at the hospital, if I'm just going like this whole day, it doesn't serve my purpose of leading my patients, of leading my hospital, of feeling good. It doesn't serve me. It's not in alignment, you know?
Exactly.
And then if I'm like this so tense every day and I don't let it go, then I'm wasting so much energy, you know? Yeah. And so being able to realize that you can go back and forth from the tension and relax, from the tension and release, from the tension and release, and realignment, and try and realign with the mission of your life, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great, man.
And that's one of those very interesting parts here. Like, those are all tools that do not take a lot of effort. They don't take a lot of effort to learn, because that's how we are built. We just unlearned it because starting at a very young age, we took on patterns from all the people around us that were completely stressed out already as well. And I say that, and I don't mean any offense to any of those people in terms of, I would never say, but in reality, they didn't even have any reason for being stressed out. Now, being stressed out is always something very subjectively. That's absolutely okay, and that has to be respected. But the thing is, still, most of them, they didn't have the tools to snap out of it again.
Right.
And it's always about how do you deal with that stressful situation in a given moment. And that's something that I see in personal development as well. At the beginning, you don't realize. Then you get angry when someone tells you. The next stage is that you realize you might still get angry, but like a day afterwards, you think, hey, hang on, I could have handled that better. Then maybe 2 or 3 years later, you don't even get angry anymore. You just instantly realize, okay, I could deal with this situation better. And then eventually you're literally so aligned with your possibilities that it doesn't take any sort of time difference anymore between some event occurring and you reacting in a truly free way. So this is why development is always something that runs on a lot of different stages, and it's almost like walking up the stairs. And the only thing, sometimes not all the steps that you have to take in one specific say issue are exactly one after the other. Sometimes you just get some of those steps are just literally completely mixed, seemingly completely mixed. They always have to do something with each other. But that's more about this development process and how someone literally grows through life and can grow a lot faster the more conscious you are with it. And physical action is something that can pull us back into this stage. And it is something that each and everyone can do on a regular day basis. Like literally, you can use this principle while washing up. You can use this principle in rock climbing. You can use this principle while lifting weights or while stitching up a patient. It doesn't matter. They're basic fundamental principles that you can use on a regular day basis. And similar to what some of the biggest thought leaders out there at the moment are saying, that like really having a positive mindset already changes so much of how you perceive the world and how you co-create the world. Yeah. That's the same for the body. And it's the same in this small stage. By using such physical principles, you train your body to be in this positive centered stage. And there is no possibility to have a body that is trained in such a way, but without it also having an effect on the mind or the emotions. Obviously, it doesn't change mind and emotions immediately and suddenly you're 100% perfect and enlightened or something like that. As mentioned, that's why I just talked about development stages and this process of development. But it is something, it is one simple and easy to access tool that each and everyone has available. And you can use it, whether you use it to just fix someone's structural problem, or you can use it to actually help someone physically, mentally, emotionally, like literally the whole package. It just depends, where do you start and how do you use your focus with that specific like method.
That's awesome, man. And so it seems like the first step is like, you know, physically, like, okay, I'm squeezing my arm, like I'm feeling that. Physically do something that you feel. Second step seems like is like realizing that you have the opportunity to influence whether you do that or whether you actually experience it, like, you know, in the Navy SEALs where they, or what you were talking about, all of this, that you actually like disassociate from what's happening and let your body take through, or like what you were talking with the shoulder, that you know, you release and you tense and you release and you tense. And then it's almost like the third one is to realize that you can align these two things for your life's purpose, you know?
Exactly. Like, it always depends. Like, if you have a very spiritual person, then I would still start with the body, because even if you have like the most wonderful spiritual or energetic experience, it becomes so much more powerful once you learn how to actually integrate it and implement it in your physical reality as well. And it's always about bridging those gaps. It's always about the interaction, and it's always about how can one influence the other. Not just can, but how do they influence each other. And then each and every one is a little bit different, and each and every one can use those principles coming from a different angle, but eventually learning the same tools, eventually being able to use them on all different levels. And that is something that only experience, to come back completely to the beginning, that only experience can give you. That is the thing. Like, you need to make this experience of a release. You need to make the experience, like you said before in the hospital, that once you refocus, once you release tension in an area, you suddenly become a lot calmer. You need to make the experience that you can use your breath to influence your state of mind, your emotion. You need to make the experience of how much you can subjectively extend the time of a moment by becoming more aware of all its participants again. So this is something that you can't read in a book. You can read it in a book, but it doesn't have that practical value that you need in order to implement it in your life. And that is, I think, what is so crucial and what's so important about also bringing different people together, and literally bringing people together who might already kind of think in that way. But like, there are so many approaches, so many different approaches, and they all facilitate a different type of experience. And that's the funny thing. There are so many people out there, a growing number of people wakes up to the fact that something has to change, that they want to change their life, that they want to do something on their own and not being completely at the mercy of a professional or something like that.
Right.
And that's the thing. That's where the summit comes in.
Exactly. And that's where we come in, because now is your time. You know, now is the time to realize that you're a specific values and expertise and knowledge and experiences, all of it can come together to really help yourself and help others overcome their own struggles. And so you're going to be talking about this in the summit.
I'm going to talk about literally this a beyond systems approach. So literally how to use basic principles, no matter what they might be, to facilitate experience to a broad audience, because that's why I created Beyond Systems. As mentioned, a growing number of different people, and the important term here is different people with different stories, with different lives, different experiences, wakes up to wanting to change something. And a strict system doesn't have the tools to facilitate all those different individual needs of people. So for me, it's not so much about, I'll talk about some of those basic principles that I use for sure. The reason why I'm going to do that is to give an example that is understandable. Like all the things that we just said, I think that is very practical and each and everyone can really understand what we're talking about here. And the second part is I just want to transport this mindset that is necessary to be able to create different approaches for different people in different situations, and to adapt the understanding that this doesn't mean it's more difficult. It just got a little bit more interesting, but also more effective. So that's one of the things that I'll be talking about. And and the second thing actually is going to be the concrete diet, as I call it, which is where I'll go into detail about how shapes and rhythms in our surroundings actually influence our lives, our bodies, and actually also shape our lives and our bodies, even our thought patterns and so on. And this is something that it affects us emotionally, but it also affects us physically. If you are in a concrete building all the time, this has a different physiological effect on you than living in a house that is built out of wood. If you're like constantly hearing the train passing by in the night every 5 minutes, you'll have a completely different sleep cycle than someone who lives, say, in a forest or just in a street where it's really calm at night. And that's the second thing that I'll be talking about at the summit. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And you know, I can definitely attest to that. When I moved here to Hawaii a year ago, the daily experiences really had an impact on my well-being and my output, you know, and so I can definitely attest to that in the sounds and and that we can control it, man. You know, that we can actually say, I want to live there, I want to live here. And so, Egwin, man, I'm looking forward to like doing this summit and connecting with you in Canada. Really thrilled to looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to that too. Like, this is going to be awesome. I'm really curious who turns up. What are the people that are coming in? What do they bring? Like literally, what do they bring to the table? And by that, I also mean all the participants, all you guys out there. Like, I'm really curious because that's what this can be. We have the chance, literally, of organizing alternatives. And by organizing, I don't mean make a company out of it, have attendance fees where you have to pay like every year to be part of some sort of community or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. By organizing, I mean literally having touch points throughout the year that allow all of us to interact and to grow together. That's what I mean by organizing. That's just literally organizing the information that is presently available in the form of the intellectual property and the experiences of each and every one of you and of us. And that's going to be what makes this so absolutely amazing and also fruitful, as I believe, for really the whole world.
Yes, absolutely, man. The connections that we're making here, this network of people will help you and I, you know, for the rest of our lives. And really, you know, I came from a background and you know, there was encouragement, but now I realize that there is other communities and everybody, you know, that people are not, they are not afraid of our growth and that will actually support us. And this is this type of community that, you know, will support you and help you and give you insights and try to connect you with other people that are doing similar things, and so that we can all thrive and we can all change the way that healthcare is practiced. So, man, this is great. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Andres, have a wonderful day. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Take care.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm posting the link to the Wellcare Summit in the comments, wellcaresummit.org. And there, right there, is right there. And so we will see everybody there. Egwin, I'll see you later, my friend.
Take care, man. Have a wonderful time. Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.